Yin paced back and forth in her bedroom. She was thinking of a way to escape from this house, her uncle, Woobin's house. Last night, she had a big argument with him because Woobin planned to marry her off to Jinho, a mafia boss in his organization, a sleazy, old man in his 50s. Woobin wanted to offer Yin as a means to secure his position in the organization, hoping it would earn him full trust from his boss. He knew that his perverted boss was obsessed with his niece. Yin clicked her tongue in annoyance, recalling how her cunning uncle brought up all the things he had done for her since her parents died, and she had been living with him for the past 3 years. Ugh, as if I don't know that he only took me in because he's after my parents' inheritance, she muttered. Yin had only recently realized her uncle's evil plan to take over her parents' wealth. At first, she thought he and his wife truly cared for her, but it turned out they didn't. The house was guarded by the bodyguards at the front gate. There was only one narrow path at the back that led directly to the main road, but to get there, Yin had to pass through the back door, which was also guarded by one bodyguard. Yin bit her nails. She glanced at her backpack, already packed with just enough clothes and essential items. It wasn't too big. She didn't want to raise suspicion that she was running away. Usually before 5 a.m., the bodyguard at the back coordinates with the ones at the front gate. I can use that moment, Yin muttered with satisfaction as she remembered the guard's routine schedule. Tomorrow afternoon, that sleazy old man Jinho would come to her uncle's house. Before he arrived, she had to be gone from this place. That was her resolve. She absolutely refused to marry that disgusting old man. Yin walked along the narrow path that connected her uncle's house to the main road. It was still dark this morning. The sun had yet to rise. She moved quickly but silently, careful not to make any noise. Every now and then, she glanced over her shoulder, feeling anxious. Her uncle's house had CCTV cameras installed at every corner. Yin was certain her figure carrying a backpack would eventually be caught on one of the cameras. So before her uncle and his men realized she was gone, she had to get as far away as possible. Her breathing grew heavy. She had already walked quite a distance. Yin wandered aimlessly, not knowing where to hide. She needed to find a safe place, because Woobin and that mafia boss Jinho would surely come looking for her. They had plenty of men who could track her down. Just as worry started to overwhelm her, Yin spotted a familiar figure, someone she used to see quite often. "Isn't that Jungkook?" she muttered. There he was, Jeon Jungkook, the man 8 years older than her who had once tried to pursue her, but whom she had rejected, thinking he was too old for her. He was the son of her late father's mafia associate. He was dressed entirely in black. 3 cars accompanied the mafia boss's presence. Jungkook was standing, leaning casually against his car, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his phone. She had no idea what a mafia convoy like that was doing parked by the side of the road. Yin felt uneasy about asking for his help, especially after having turned him down in the past. But given her desperate situation, she had no other choice. Without a second thought, she stepped forward. "Jungkook." The call made Jungkook look up. He was visibly startled to see Yin standing not far from him. Yin beamed and jogged toward him, but the moment she moved, the bodyguards instantly became alert, reacting as though a threat had approached their boss. Yin flinched and froze, fear creeping over her. Jungkook quietly chuckled to himself and raised one hand toward his bodyguards, signaling that everything was fine. Once Jungkook gave her permission, Yin continued her steps and stopped right in front of him. She had to tilt her head up just to look him in the eyes. "Jungkook," she called again. "Oh, you still remember me?" he asked, his cold, deep voice laced with subtle sarcasm. Yin nodded. Of course. She remembered this man. Their fathers used to be business partners and mafia associates, so she had met Jungkook several times at company parties. He always stood out from the rest of the guests. He was handsome, rich, cold, and mysterious. Yin knew Jungkook was incredibly charismatic, but still, she never saw him as her ideal type, mostly because of the significant age gap. Yin glanced over her shoulder several times, her face filled with worry. Jungkook frowned, but he didn't ask anything yet. He decided to let Yin explain it on her own. "Jungkook, I need your help," Yin said directly, skipping any small talk. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. "Help with what?" "Can we talk in the car?" Yin asked, panic creeping into her voice. She was scared her uncle's men might have already realized she was gone. Seeing Jungkook still unmoving, she pleaded again, "Please, I'll explain everything later." Jungkook nodded. Despite everything it seemed, he still couldn't bear to see Yin in distress. Yin thanked him with a relieved smile and climbed into the car, finally feeling a little safer. Jungkook was still observing Yin. Now, they were sitting side by side. At Yin's request, The car was moving. She had asked to leave that street immediately. She didn't care where, as long as it was far away. Once again, Jungkook complied, and his bodyguards followed behind. Yin was nervous, but she had to tell him the truth. "Jungkook, I need your help," she said softly. "Speak," Jungkook replied shortly while driving, his eyes still fixed on the road ahead. Yin turned fully toward him, prompting Jungkook to glance at her briefly. He was stunned. Those beautiful eyes were still the same. They could still make his heart tremble. It had been almost 3 years since he last saw this girl. Ever since her father's death, she had stopped attending company events. And now, even after all this time, Yin was still the only woman he had ever loved. He had backed off after she rejected him, not wanting to stir any trouble with her father by continuing to pursue her. He thought those feelings had faded, but now, seeing her again, they were still there. "I ran away from my uncle's house." Jungkook stayed silent, eyes straight ahead. But Yin knew he was listening. "I ran away because he wants to marry me off to Jinho." Jungkook flinched. His previously calm face turned hard. "Jinho? That old creep?" he asked, turning briefly to her. "Yes, that sleazy old man," Yin hissed. "My uncle wants me to marry him so he can secure his position in the organization. He wants to become Jinho's trusted man." "Wasn't Woobin good to you?" Jungkook asked, confused. Yin scoffed, her eyes sharpening. "At first, I thought he really cared, but it turns out, he's been using my dad's inheritance all this time for his own pleasure. And now, he wants to sacrifice me. I hate him." Jungkook let out a slow breath. He understood her situation well enough. In the dark world he had long been a part of, no one was truly good. People could change instantly for money and power. "So what do you need from me?" Jungkook finally asked, though he was already starting to understand. Yin looked at him hesitantly, but she had no other option. "Can I stay at your mansion for a while? It's the safest place I can think of. No matter where I hide, my uncle and that damn boss of his will find me. But if I'm with you, I'm sure they won't dare do anything." She knew Jungkook was a feared and respected mafia figure, even by Jinho. That's why she hoped she could find protection in him. Silently, Jungkook smirked. In a flash, an interesting idea crossed his clever mind. "Sure, but nothing comes for free," he said. "You want me to pay? How much?" Jungkook scoffed. He had more than enough money. "I don't need your money." "Then what?" "I promise I'll do anything, as long as you protect me from them. I refuse to marry that old man." Jungkook gave her a crooked smile. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "I'll tell you later what the payment will be," he said, making Yin frown. She wanted to ask, but Jungkook cut her off first. "Save all your questions for when we get to my mansion. I want you to marry me." Those 5 words made Yin freeze in shock. "That's the condition you must fulfill if you want to stay in my mansion," Jungkook said, pausing for a moment. He was clearly enjoying the stunned expression on Yin's face. "With you as my wife, I'll protect you, not just from Jinho or Woobin, but from anything that threatens you." If those words had come from a man Yin liked, she would have been touched. She would have gladly accepted the marriage proposal without a second thought. But the problem was, she didn't like Jungkook. She never once considered marrying this handsome mafia boss. "Why does it have to be marriage?" Yin asked, confused. "I can do anything else. Or if you want, I'll pay you whatever amount you ask, but not marriage." Jungkook scoffed. "I already have everything. I don't need anything else, except marrying you." Yin turned her face away, clearly frustrated. This was no different than escaping a crocodile's den only to walk into a lion's. "Why are these two mafia bosses so obsessed with marrying me?" she muttered angrily, loud enough for Jungkook to hear. He chuckled softly, his eyes gleaming as he looked at her. "You have a kind of charm not every woman possesses. That's why you managed to captivate the hearts of these mafia bosses," he laughed. "But you're old. You guys should be looking for women your own age. Go find yourself a sexy older lady to marry," Yin snapped in protest. Jungkook laughed again. Yin's anger wasn't scary to him. In fact, he found it adorable, and he liked it. "I'm only 30. That's not old. Besides, love doesn't look at age. At least I'm not like that old geezer who chases after every woman he sees." Yin shuddered in disgust. She had always known Jungkook as a cold, ruthless mafia boss, not someone who could flirt with cheesy lines like this. "I'm not doing it. I'd rather ask someone else for help," she refused again firmly. Yin was about to stand up, but Jungkook swiftly grabbed her wrist and pulled her close, wrapping his arm tightly around her waist until their bodies were pressed together. "You think you can just walk out that easily, baby?" he asked sharply. "You stepped into my mansion. That means you're not going anywhere," he added with a chilling smirk. Yin's body stiffened in his embrace. He hadn't raised his voice, but his intimidating aura was overwhelming. It made her freeze. You don't need to do anything else. Just stay here quietly. I'll provide everything you need. But I don't want to marry you, Yin said with the last bit of courage she had left, eyes glued to his broad chest right in front of her face. She didn't even dare look him in his eyes. Jungkook chuckled. We'll see about that. Then he called for one of the maids. Take my future wife to her bedroom, he said, finally letting go of Yin's waist. I'm not your future. Yin started to protest, but before she could finish, Jungkook raised his index finger and gently pressed it against her lips. Prepare everything she needs. Give her whatever she wants, he ordered the bowing maid. Don't make any mistakes, or you'll be punished. Yes, sir. No one dared disobey him, not even ask questions. They were too afraid. Jungkook lived alone in this huge mansion. His parents had chosen a peaceful life in the countryside, tired of the harsh world they once ruled. Now, Jungkook had taken over and was leading the organization and his family's business. Yin didn't know when Jungkook had prepared this room for her, because the moment she stepped into the room shown by the maid, everything was already neat and complete. High-end makeup products, full sets of skincare and body care items, and racks of clothes, everything had been provided by Jungkook. Yin was amazed, but for Jungkook none of this was difficult. In less than an hour, he could provide for all her needs. She looked around in awe. The room was spacious, with a king-size bed in the center. Jungkook even knew her favorite scent, lavender. He also knew her favorite color, as almost every piece of furniture in the room was light blue. Is there anything I can help you with, miss? Yin turned around, just realizing the maid was still in the room. No, nothing, Yin replied kindly. The maid nodded. Very well. I'll excuse myself. You can call me anytime if you need anything. Have a good rest, she said politely with a slight bow. Yin lay down on the soft bed and exhaled deeply several times. If this were called a prison, then she was imprisoned in a luxurious bedroom. She closed her eyes. For now, she just needed to let her heart and mind rest. She'd figure out how to escape this mansion later. Right now, she just wanted to sleep. She was exhausted. How was your sleep? Comfortable? Jungkook asked as Yin joined him at the dining table for dinner. Yin shrugged, unwilling to answer. She eyed all the food laid out on the table. Honestly, she had taken such a good nap earlier that she only woke up around 5 p.m. Her growling stomach eventually forced her to come downstairs, even though she had wanted to stay hidden in her room. Jungkook chuckled, not at all offended by her silence. Eat. I had the maids prepare all your favorite dishes. It was true. Every dish on the table was one of her favorites. The delicious aroma made her mouth water. She could barely wait to dig in. But wait. How do you know all of my favorite foods? Yin asked, narrowing her eyes. You even decorated the bedroom in my favorite color. And the scent? Lavender. How do you know all that? Jungkook responded with a light chuckle. What don't I know about you? He set down his utensils and looked at her with a teasing glint in his eyes. I even know your underwear size, he added in a low voice, smirking. Yin's eyes widened. Instinctively, she crossed her arms over her chest. Jungkook burst out laughing at her reaction. You're such a pervert, she snapped. Jungkook shrugged, still chuckling softly. It's only natural to know those things about the woman I love. Yin shook her head in disbelief. Jungkook was crazier and more dangerous than she thought. Honestly, she was starting to regret asking for his help. Would she ever be able to escape this luxurious prison? Eat, Jungkook said again. Or do you want me to feed you? You can choose, with my hand or my mouth, he added with a playful tone. Yin glared at him, eyes wide. Damn it, was Jungkook really in love with her, or just obsessed? Why did she have to be stuck with crazy men like this? During her time in Jungkook's mansion, Yin was treated like a queen. Whatever she wanted was always provided. Everything, except the freedom to go outside. Yin wasn't allowed to leave the house without strict security. Jungkook didn't want to take the risk of her escaping, even if he gave her just a little freedom. He wouldn't let her go. If Yin still refused to marry him, then at the very least, she would still be within his reach. That alone was enough to make Jungkook's days feel better. You'll never escape, baby, Jungkook chuckled as he watched Yin being dragged back again by the bodyguards after yet another escape attempt. Yin pouted in frustration. She had tried everything to get away, but she was always caught. The security in Jungkook's mansion was unbreakable. Let go of my girl. You can leave, Jungkook said to the guards, amused as Yin narrowed her eyes at him. Don't make that face, he chuckled again. You're so annoying. Jungkook sighed softly. He didn't actually like forcing her. He didn't want Yin to feel uncomfortable in his mansion, but if he let her go again, he might lose his mind. Yin, Can't you just try to enjoy staying here in my mansion? Jungkook asked, sounding almost desperate. I just want you to be here. You're safe here, Yin. I'll make sure you're always safe. No, I feel uncomfortable because of you. Yin shot back defiantly. I'm not going to do anything bad to you, Jungkook replied, still trying to be patient. Have I ever treated you badly? I could never hurt someone I like. All I ask is for you to stay close to me. Is that so hard? Yin didn't answer. She was confused about how she felt. Jungkook had been incredibly kind to her. In almost 2 weeks of staying here, he'd never once acted harshly. And yet, she still felt threatened. The thought of marrying Jungkook haunted her. It made her feel trapped. It's already 10 p.m., get some rest, Jungkook said, sounding tired. This time, Yin obeyed. A small pang of guilt hit her when she saw the worn-out expression on Jungkook's face. Had she been too harsh to someone who had helped her? But she brushed the thought aside. Her pride still stood tall. This Sunday morning, Jungkook received the guests he had been expecting, Jinho and Woobin. He had already predicted that sooner or later, they would show up. Jinho, being a mafia boss, would have had no trouble tracking down where Yin was hiding. I won't beat around the bush. Where are you hiding her? Jinho asked after they were invited to sit. Jungkook stared blankly, leaning back casually. Unlike Jinho and Woobin, who both looked tense, he was completely at ease. I'm not hiding Yin, Jungkook replied. To be exact, she came to me herself and asked for my help. Woobin cleared his throat. He had been gathering the courage to speak with Jungkook. Forgive me, Mr. Jungkook, but I'm Yin's uncle. She's my responsibility now that her parents have passed. So please, allow me to take care of her. Jungkook smirked coldly. You have the nerve to talk about responsibility after using her late dad's inheritance for your own gain? Woobin flinched. He silently cursed Yin for spilling his secret. You're a terrible uncle, Woobin, Jungkook continued. And now you're willing to sacrifice your niece just to protect your position? Woobin was speechless. He couldn't deny or defend himself. Everything Jungkook said was true. Mr. Jungkook, I've been interested in Yin for a long time. I want to marry her. So please, let me take her off your hands. You don't need to trouble yourself with her. Let me take care of that girl. Jungkook scoffed. Apparently, he wasn't the only one obsessed with Yin. This old man clearly had the same obsession. Yin did have an extraordinary charm. Without even trying, she had 2 mafia bosses wrapped around her finger. I'll call Yin. Let her decide. Jungkook instructed a maid to bring her downstairs. He was confident. He was sure Yin would rather stay with him than marry Jinho or live with Woobin, who had only ever used her. And a few minutes later, when Yin appeared before them. Yin, my dearest niece, are you alright, sweetheart? Woobin stepped forward, trying to hug her, but suddenly, Jungkook raised a gun toward him. Stay right where you are, Woobin, or this little bullet will go straight through your head. Woobin swallowed hard. He sat back down, trembling slightly. Jungkook was terrifying, just as the rumors said. Meanwhile, Yin smirked discreetly. That useless uncle of hers clearly didn't have the guts to face Jungkook. Baby, they're here to take you home. Do you want to go? Jungkook asked gently. Yin frowned for a second, but she knew Jungkook was testing her. It was obvious she didn't want to go with them, but Jungkook was deliberately offering her a clear choice. Stay with them, or stay with him. I won't go home with you, Yin said firmly, her voice loud and full of conviction. I choose to stay here, with Jungkook. Jinho looked stunned, while Woobin clenched his jaw, unable to hide his anger. But Yin didn't care. She had been suppressed and used for too long by the very people who were supposed to protect her. Now it was time for her to decide her own path. Yin, you don't know what you're doing, said Jinho, trying to keep his tone from rising. I do, Yin cut in quickly. For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I'm doing. Jungkook looked at Yin with a faint smile. He didn't say anything, but his gaze said it all. He would protect her with everything he had. Jinho clenched his fists tightly, glaring at Yin and Jungkook in rage. It doesn't work like that, he snapped, his voice rising, prompting the bodyguards to move into alert position. I was the one who wanted you first. You can't just do as you please. Mr. Jinho, lower your voice, Jungkook warned coldly. You should be aware of where you are. Boss, don't cause trouble. We'll lose. Woobin whispered nervously. He feared Jungkook's bodyguards, who were now eyeing them with deadly stares. No matter what, Jungkook's mafia organization was bigger than Jinho's. In every aspect, they would lose. Realizing the danger, Jinho lowered his voice. Yin, can't you reconsider? He asked more gently. I'll give you everything. I promise you'll be happy with me. Happy with an old man? Yeah, right, Yin sneered inwardly. I can give Yin anything she wants, Jungkook replied coldly. I can give her love and affection. I can give her happiness. He wasn't going to back down. Yin has chosen me, and as a real man, you should accept that you've lost to me, Jungkook added sharply. Jinho growled under his breath. He couldn't accept this rejection. He had swallowed his pride to come and ask for Yin, but the girl had humiliated him. Now, he couldn't do anything. He wasn't about to dig his own grave inside Jungkook's mansion. Just wait for my revenge, little girl, Jinho thought with a sinister smirk before finally turning and leaving with Woobin. After Woobin and Jinho left the mansion, Jungkook stared at Yin in silence for a few seconds before finally speaking in a calm but pressured voice. Come upstairs. I want to talk. Yin obeyed, even though her heart was in turmoil. As soon as they reached the front of her room and she was about to open the door, Jungkook touched her shoulder and entered without being invited. Yin quickly turned, looking at Jungkook with a displeased gaze. I want to be alone. You can't, Jungkook replied curtly, then closed the door behind them. Yin. Jungkook turned to face her, arms crossed over his chest, his gaze serious. I'm going to marry you. I don't want to. Too late, Jungkook stepped forward, cornering Yin against the wall, limiting her movement. I will marry you. Yin looked up at him, her eyes blazing with anger. I will not marry you, Jungkook. Not now, not ever. Don't ever think you can force me. Jungkook smirked. You chose to stay here. That means you're mine. I stayed because I didn't want to go home with them. Not because I want to be your wife, Yin snapped firmly. But Jungkook just let out a small laugh. Then what? Should I get you pregnant first so you'll marry me, huh? He whispered softly, yet threateningly. Yin froze, stunned, but then shoved Jungkook hard. You're insane. I'm not afraid of you. Jungkook grabbed Yin's wrist and pulled her closer. I'm not insane, he said in a deep voice. I just love you too much. Without giving Yin a chance to resist, Jungkook leaned down and kissed her forcefully. The kiss was rough, full of emotion, and left Yin frozen in shock. She pounded his chest repeatedly, trying to break free, but the man didn't budge an inch. Let me go, Yin shouted between the kisses that left her breathless. Finally, Jungkook pulled away from her lips, but his hands still gripped her wrist tightly. Their breathing was ragged. Yin's face flushed with anger and embarrassment, while Jungkook stared at her intensely, his voice low and trembling with emotion. You can hate me, but you won't leave me. I've fallen too deeply in love with you to let you go. Jungkook stared at Yin in silence. His breathing was still unsteady, just like the turmoil in his heart. Slowly, he leaned in, trying to kiss her lips again, but Yin quickly turned her face away, and Jungkook's lips unintentionally landed on her cheek instead. He sighed, then gently turned her face back toward him, and this time, he managed to kiss her lips. The kiss was soft and careful, as if he were afraid of hurting her with it. Yin didn't resist anymore. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, and before she realized it, a tear fell down her cheek. It didn't take long for Jungkook to notice the wetness on her skin. He stopped, gazing at her face, then gently wiped away the tears on her smooth cheek with his fingers. This is the safest place for you, baby, he whispered softly. It's okay to cry, as long as you're safe. I don't mind going crazy. Yin began to sob. You're really crazy, Jungkook, she said between sniffles. Instead of being offended, Jungkook just gave a faint smile. He bent down and placed a gentle kiss on her forehead. I'm leaving now, Jungkook said softly, locking eyes with Yin once more. But be ready, in 3 days, we're getting married. Before Yin could protest, Jungkook had already opened the door and walked out, leaving Yin standing there, silent and stunned. 4 days later. It was still very early in the morning when Yin woke up in a bed that felt unfamiliar to her. The ceiling was different, as was the aroma of the room and the softness of the mattress. It took her a few seconds to realize one thing. She was in Jungkook's room. Quickly, Yin sat up, panic surging within her. Her hands hurriedly fumbled over the soft satin nightgown that still draped over her body. The gown was still intact, neat, and not a bit disheveled. Yin let out a slow sigh of relief. That's right. Yesterday was their wedding day. Last night, Jungkook had insisted that Yin move to the master bedroom, the room that now belonged to both of them. We're married now. My wife should sleep with me, Jungkook had said. At first, Yin had refused. She wasn't ready. Everything felt too fast. But Jungkook didn't get angry. He didn't throw a tantrum like she had feared. Jungkook had just spoken softly, almost expressionlessly. I promise I won't do anything. I won't touch you without permission. But if you refuse to come into my bedroom, maybe I'll end up doing something you won't like. That threat made Yin go silent, not because she was afraid Jungkook would hurt her, but because she started to realize he was truly crazy. Crazy because he loved her, and because of that, he could do anything. But as it turned out, Jungkook kept his promise. Last night, after they entered the room, Jungkook had only asked her to lie down. He turned off the lights, then lay down on the other side of the bed, and they both truly just slept. Suddenly, the bathroom door swung open, revealing Jungkook. He was wearing nothing but a towel wrapped around his waist, his athletic body fully on display. Yin was startled, and without realizing it, her cheeks grew warm. Her eyes involuntarily followed Jungkook's every move. Jungkook smirked at Yin's reaction, casually walking toward the bed and looking at her, still frozen in place. "Don't get lost in your thoughts for too long," he teased, his voice laced with playful mischief. "If you want, you can touch it as much as you like," he added with a soft chuckle. Yin quickly lowered her gaze, unsure of what to say. Her body felt unusually warm, but she forced herself to keep her distance, not wanting to get caught up in Jungkook's games. After getting married, Yin still wasn't granted her freedom. She remained confined within the mansion. It made her feel suffocated. She was frustrated. Yin often became irritable, blaming Jungkook for being a cruel husband. Not wanting to add to her stress, Jungkook finally allowed Yin to go outside for a day, though she would still be accompanied by bodyguards. Jungkook wanted to come along, but Yin refused. She said she wanted to enjoy some time alone. Yin walked slowly along the quiet shoreline. The sea breeze gently tousled her hair, but it couldn't ease the tightness in her chest. The sound of the waves crashing onto the shore, once soothing, now only deepened the emptiness within her. Her eyes stared off into the horizon, but her heart was trapped in memories of the past. She remembered the last time she had visited this beach with her parents. Her father held her left hand, her mother held the right. They had laughed together. They had been whole. Now, there was no one, only her, alone. Tears started to roll down her cheeks. "I miss you both," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why did you leave me in a world this cruel? A world where everyone only approached her to take something." The friends who once claimed to care had disappeared when she fell. Distant relatives who suddenly showed up only to ask about the inheritance. And Jungkook. Yin lowered her gaze, clutching the hem of her dress tightly as it fluttered in the wind. Even Jungkook, the man who was now her husband, was no different. He didn't come to her out of love, but out of obsession, out of a desire to possess. "Am I just something for people to use?" she muttered, her eyes still fixed on the waves with a vacant look. "No one is ever truly sincere with me." Her heart trembled, aching with a mix of sorrow and emptiness. She felt hollow. There was no place she could truly call home, no one she could fully trust. All she had was herself, trapped in a world full of pretense and expectations. And for the first time, Yin realized she was truly alone. Suddenly, Yin's thoughts shattered as she felt something hot pierce into her stomach. She collapsed to the ground, her legs giving way beneath her. Fresh blood oozed from the wound on her abdomen. In the distance, someone grinned wickedly. "Got you. Sleep tight, princess." Yin was rushed to the hospital immediately. 3 bullets had lodged in her abdomen. Blood flowed heavily, soaking her clothes. Her breathing was shallow and weak, as if her life were hanging by a thread. In the seemingly endless hospital hallway, Jungkook was running. His breath was short, his face pale, and his eyes filled with dread. The moment he received the news from his men that Yin had been shot, Jungkook's world began to crumble. Nothing else mattered anymore, only Yin. On the way, he drove himself to the hospital, ignoring all security protocols, even nearly crashing into several cars. Jungkook didn't care. All he knew was that his wife was fighting between life and death. After waiting outside the operating room for hours, a doctor finally emerged. His face was tense. Jungkook immediately stood and rushed toward him. 2 out of the 3 bullets hit both her kidneys, the doctor explained. "We managed to remove them, but to survive, she needs a kidney transplant, at least one." Without hesitation, Jungkook volunteered himself. "Take mine." The doctor froze for a moment, surprised by the swift decision. "I'm serious, doctor. Run the tests. If I'm a match, take my kidney. I don't care, as long as she lives." Jungkook's voice trembled, but his gaze was sharp and resolute. He was willing to give anything, even a part of himself, just to save Yin. After a tense waiting period, the results came in. "You're a match," the doctor said with relief. "Your kidney is highly compatible with hers." It was as if fate had already written it. Her only hope of survival came from the man who loved her most. The medical team immediately got to work. Consent forms were brought out. Jungkook was asked to sign donor documents, surgery approvals, and other important papers. Without hesitation, Jungkook signed them all, one after another. "The surgery will begin shortly, sir. We'll have the operating room ready within an hour," said one of the surgeons in charge. But before anything began, Jungkook called the doctor back. His gaze was serious, and his voice came out low, yet full of meaning. "Doctor, please make sure of one thing," he said. "Never tell Yin that this kidney came from me." The doctor looked confused. "But, sir, she'll want to know who her donor is. No." Jungkook cut in. "If she finds out, she'll feel indebted. I don't want her to live with that burden. Let her believe it came from someone else. Anyone, just not me." He paused, then took a deep breath, whispering in his heart, "I'm not doing this so she'll love me. I just want her to live." The doctor looked at him for a long moment, then slowly nodded. "All right, we'll keep this secret." And with that, preparations began. Within hours, 2 major surgeries would take place, one to remove a part of Jungkook's life, and the other to give Yin hers back. A few days later, in a quiet and comfortable VIP hospital room, Yin slowly opened her eyes that afternoon. The light in the room felt a bit too bright, but not more than the heaviness still lingering in her body. Her vision was slightly blurry, but the figure sitting beside her bed immediately caught her attention. Jungkook. He sat there quietly, wearing a black t-shirt and casual pants, not a patient clothing like most people after surgery. His face looked a little pale but calm, as always. Jungkook had recovered faster after the operation compared to Yin, because his abdomen had no additional wounds or damage. The moment Yin opened her eyes, Jungkook looked at her, and a small smile formed on his lips. "You're awake?" he asked softly. Yin gave a slight nod. The two of them just stared at each other in silence. A few seconds felt longer than usual. "Jungkook," Yin finally spoke, her voice hoarse and weak. "This morning, the doctor came in while you were out for a bit. She had actually woken up earlier that morning, but her condition had still been too weak to say anything." Jungkook didn't respond right away. He simply listened, waiting for Yin to continue. The doctor said, "I survived because of a kidney transplant." Yin paused for a moment, trying to catch her breath. "They said the donor was a car accident victim, someone who couldn't be saved." Jungkook nodded slowly. "Yeah, I heard that too." Yin looked straight at him. "You don't know who it was?" Jungkook gave her a faint smile, calm and reassuring. "No, but what matters now is that you're still here. You're alive, Yin." Yin shifted her gaze to the ceiling. "I don't know, it just feels like too much of a coincidence. The perfect match, right when I needed it most." "Sometimes, fate works in strange ways." Jungkook cut in gently, his voice soft but firm. Yin fell silent. Something about it felt off, but at the same time, she felt at peace. She nodded slowly. For now, she chose to believe that. Besides, her body was still too exhausted to think any further. 3 weeks later, in the quiet, grand backyard of the mansion, Yin sat silently inside the garden gazebo. Her fingers absent-mindedly fidgeted in her lap, while her gaze remained vacant, lost in the sight of the blooming flowers. A gentle breeze drifted by, but it wasn't enough to calm the storm raging inside her chest. Since she had moved into this mansion, Yin had been treated like a queen, but that alone wasn't enough to bring her peace. Her heart was still in turmoil. Jungkook was still the same as ever, possessive, protective, always watching her from the shadows. They had shared a room since their marriage, and although he never crossed any physical boundaries, Yin couldn't shake off the feeling of being constantly observed. Jungkook had indeed kept his promise not to make love to her without her consent, but there were several times when Yin woke up and found herself in his arms. Jungkook would purposely hold her. Once she had fallen into a deep sleep, completely unaware that she had woken up in the middle of the night. It annoyed her a little, but at the same time, it confused her, because no matter how much she tried to resist, her heart slowly wavered, allowing Jungkook to keep holding her. Even so, she knew one undeniable truth. She was a prisoner in a luxurious cage, a prison built from Jungkook's obsession. And as much as she wanted to escape, she was fully aware that the outside world was far more terrifying than this mansion. Her cunning uncle and that disgusting old boss would never stop looking for her. No matter how hard she tried to hide, Yin knew they would eventually find her. She exhaled slowly. At the very least, here, she was still treated well, given comfort, and offered protection. With slow steps and a heart still filled with unrest, Yin finally rose from her seat in the back garden. She decided to return inside the mansion. The cool outdoor air was no longer enough to calm her thoughts. She felt exhausted from all the turmoil in her heart. As she passed through each room, her mind drifted to many things, about how drastically her life had changed since the marriage. She had entered every room in this mansion, all except for one that had always remained closed and untouched, the study room of Jungkook. Yin knew how much Jungkook valued the privacy of that room, but today, for some reason, curiosity overwhelmed everything else. Jungkook wasn't home. He was still at work and not expected to return until late at night. The door to the study wasn't locked. Carefully, Yin opened it. Her eyes scanned the entire room, until they landed on a pile of documents placed neatly on the desk. At the top was the clearly printed logo of the hospital where she had been treated weeks ago. Yin furrowed her brow in curiosity and picked up one of the folders. Inside, she found a form already signed. Her eyes widened in shock. It was a voluntary kidney donor consent form. Her hands trembled as she turned to the next page. All the legal documents clearly stated that Jungkook had consciously and voluntarily donated one of his kidneys to save her life. She remembered what the doctor had said, that the donor was a car crash victim. Slowly, tears began to fall, landing on the papers in her hands. So it was all a lie. Jungkook had asked the doctor to lie, and she had believed it. Why did you do this in secret? She whispered softly, her voice barely audible. Yin stood there in silence, eyes lowered. A warm feeling spread through her chest, mixed with guilt. Jungkook, the man she had thought was merely obsessed with her, was also the one who had saved her life, quietly, without expecting anything in return. While everyone else had approached her for their own benefit, Jungkook had been the one willing to give a part of his life, just for her. Finally, with her hands still trembling, she quietly picked up her phone and called someone. Her tears fell even harder when she heard the voice on the other end. Yin took a deep breath before finally speaking. Come home now. There's something important I need to talk to you about. Jungkook's footsteps were soft but hurried as he opened the door to their bedroom. Warm lighting bathed the room, and his eyes instantly fell on Yin sitting on the sofa, head bowed. Her shoulders trembled slightly, and when his fingers gently lifted her chin, Jungkook froze. Her eyes were swollen, red from crying, and for Jungkook, that alone was enough to make his heart feel like it was being crushed. Yin, he called softly. But Yin only stared at him. She didn't yell, she wasn't angry, but her gaze was filled with pain, with questions that had long been buried. I just want to know one thing, Yin said quietly but clearly. Why did you do it? And why did you hide it from me? Jungkook froze in place, his breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, he could only look at his wife in silence. I don't know what you're talking about, he finally said, trying to hold his ground. But Yin shook her head. Don't lie, Jungkook. Her voice remained calm, but sharp. I saw the documents. In your study, all the forms, your signature. I know you're the donor. Silence fell between them, long and heavy, until finally, Jungkook took a deep breath and lowered his gaze. He leaned against the sofa, then gave a small smile, not of joy, but one filled with weariness and sincerity. I just wanted you to live, he murmured, and if I had to give up a part of myself to make that happen, I'd do it without hesitation, again and again. Yin simply stared at him, her eyes welling with tears once more. I know you hate being restrained, but I did it because out there are dangerous people targeting you. You might even hate me, Jungkook continued, his voice beginning to tremble. But no matter how far you push me away, I'll keep protecting you, from anyone, from anything. This time, Yin's tears fell again, but not out of sadness. Her heart had finally begun to soften. The man she once believed to be her prison turned out to be the most genuine protector she had ever known. Yin hugged him tightly. It seemed that from now on, she was the one who didn't want to be away from him, and the mansion that she once saw as a prison had truly become the most comforting home for her.